You're listening to the Baumbastic Podcast with Andrew Ellis on Inside Arkansas.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Baumbastic Podcast, the best damn podcast on the planet for anything, but specifically for Arkansas Razorback baseball. I am Andrew Ellis. We are Inside Arkansas. We are brought to you by the #1 sports betting app in the state of Arkansas, SARACEN Sportsbook. Download it on your iPhone or Android today. We've got another edition, a live chat edition of Calling All Casuals, where we invite casuals and diehards alike to come together and join in fellowship over the great joy that is Arkansas Razorback baseball. It makes us so happy, doesn't it? And so what we're going to do is, like we always do, kick it, hang out, chat with you guys, see what you guys have going on, answer questions, whatever that may be. And I have said this at the beginning, because the point of the show initially was that casuals that aren't necessarily diehard baseball fans could come here and ask stupid questions and be like, hey, what's a double? What's a triple? What is a save? Ask normal, questions so that they could get up to speed as quickly as possible, because baseball is a sport that requires obviously a lot of context. You need to know a lot of things. And, if you're watching the game at Baum, you're not listening to the radio broadcast, not watching on TV, sometimes you can miss out on a lot of that context. And the more you know, the better it helps your experience. So I basically wanted people to be able to watch baseball all year, know what they're seeing, know what's going on, and just be better informed overall, which helps our overall experience. Unfortunately, this year, knowing more about Arkansas baseball is almost a curse, because you know how rough things are going at times, but they are coming off of a 7-0 win over Little Rock. If you guys want to talk about that, that's perfectly fine. I do have a little bit of ranting to do, not ranting, just kind of looking at some numbers, pulling up some stats from previous years and kind of comparing and contrasting and taking a step back and kind of looking at some of Arkansas's pieces in the lineup. And really the big thing I want to figure out is, are these, we're going to look at everyone's numbers for this year. Are they going to improve on those numbers, or are they going to, decrease, whatever's going on? And if you look at some past years, there's some examples where if you take Arkansas at different stages in the season, because if you go on the school's website, you look at the game notes, you can kind of pick through what the stats looked like at different points in the season, and you can kind of realize, oh, okay, this was happening, and then this guy started hitting better, this guy started pitching better, or this guy was hitting 390, and then all of a sudden he, finished at 280, and so that's why this team flamed out in the postseason. It's very interesting to learn from history and kind of learn the ebbs and flows a little bit, because baseball's a weird game, as you guys know. Hashtag that's just baseball. Sometimes you have good players go through bad stretches. Sometimes you have bad players go through good stretches. You have everything in between, but it's a game of averages. And so a lot of what we're going to have to figure out with Arkansas is, do you just kind of let some of these averages play out in some way? And I do think they have kind of made that decision, specifically with Aloy and Pompey, where they're like, listen, these guys are going to have moments that drive us nuts, but they are also going to hit home runs every now and then. They're going to drive in a lot of runs. They can get hot on occasion. So I think we just kind of have to live with that. And I think that's what you're seeing to an extent. And so we're going to look at this year's stats as well as compare it to last year at this time. And I also want to look at the 2022 team, just because I do think there are a lot of interesting parallels between this team and 2022. And I hope that they wind up sharing postseason success in their list of parallels. But we're going to get to all that. But I do want to talk to you about our favorite sponsor here at Inside Arkansas, OZK Insurance. Nobody wants to deal with the hassle of shopping around, and that's why I use and recommend OZK Insurance. They're based right here in Arkansas, and they shop multiple carriers to find the best coverage and price for you, whether it's home, auto, business, you name it. Whether it's Saturdays at Razorback Stadium, Fridays at Baum Stadium, or just everyday life, you want protection you can count on. With over 600 five-star Google reviews, you can count on OZK Insurance. You can start today with a free online quote at ozkinsurance.com or call 479-715-4200. OZK Insurance, protection made simple. And we're going to get to the chat for sure. I'm not abandoning you guys altogether, although I'm not expecting record attendance given how things are going with the baseball squad. But appreciate you guys for being here and supporting no matter what. But real quick, so I want to pull up last year's team stats through 34 games. What do y'all think Arkansas's record was through 34 games last year? Just get your guess in. It's like Dora the Explorer. Get your guess in. They were 31-3, dude. 31-3 overall. 11-1 in SEC play. Now, their next three series were against Georgia, A&M, and Florida. They lost all three of those. So the numbers I'm about to pull up here for Arkansas last year at this point are right before they hit a little bit of a lull in SEC play. And when they kind of hit their, they were kind of the hot, cold, hot theory team. This is, right when they kind of hit their cold stretch. So these numbers come down to earth a little bit. And of course, once you get to the end of the season, a lot of the numbers come down a little bit. Some go up a little bit. It just kind of, there's some fluctuation. But let's take a look at this real quick. So again, this is last year's team right after they swept Vanderbilt, and then I can't remember who they played in the midweek. They played their midweek game, and they were going into a road series with Georgia, which they wound up losing 2 out of 3. This is what the numbers look like. They were hitting .335 overall as a team, slugging .600, 601 slugging as a team. I would imagine that had to be like top 5 nationally. Had an on-base percentage of .449, which is damn near 100 points higher than what Arkansas's got going on right now. Not great in the stolen base department, but whatever. 3.52 team ERA as well, so they were pitching pretty well. The worst ERA on the team was Gabe Gackle at 5.77. Outside of that, literally 0 people with an ERA over 5. The strikeout numbers were really good. The walk numbers were really good as well. Arkansas is one of the best teams in the country in walk rate on the mound. But let's look a little bit at these individuals. So, because really, if you just go through player for player, almost everybody, their numbers came down a little bit, which you would think happens all the time. Not necessarily. Like Camden Kojal, he was hitting .411. He was coming off of an absolute heater. I think he might have been SEC Player of the Week when they went to Vanderbilt and faced his old school. He was hitting .411 with 7 home runs. His numbers came down to earth just a little bit. Charles Davalon was hitting .410 with 12 home runs. His numbers came down a good bit, especially in the slugging department. Still wound up, both those guys were well over 300. Both of those guys were killing it, but had done a lot of that damage to this point in the season. Logan Maxwell's hitting .386 with 9 home runs. I believe he ended around like .360 with 12 or 13 home runs. I can't remember. Kahio Valoy was hitting .371 with 9 home runs. I believe he finished this year around .317 in the batting average department and had 13 home runs. So really, didn't do a crazy amount of damage down the stretch from Kahio Valoy. Vahivo Valoy was hitting .359 with 10 home runs. That's actually pretty much exactly what he did for the rest of the year. I think he finished with like .357 and 21 home runs or something like that. So he's kind of one of the very few guys who didn't see an increase or a decrease. He just continued to be that guy. Brent Iredale was hitting .327 with 10 home runs. He ended up around .286 in the batting average department with, I think, 13 or 14 home runs. So, again, did the bulk of his damage early in the season. Now, he did continue to draw an absurd amount of free passes. Justin Thomas was at .286. He actually finished, I believe, over 300. So just over 30, I think it was like 301, 302. Had hit 4 home runs. He wound up with, I think, 9. So he actually did some good stuff down the stretch for Arkansas as well. And then Nolan Souza, of course, this was literally, I guess this was right when Nolan Souza got hurt, because it was game 1 against Georgia where he suffered his season-ending injury, which kind of forced Reese Robinette into the lineup. Reese Robinette did not have a hit in the season. He was 0 for 6 at the plate so far, and then, of course, wound up being Arkansas's everyday starter there at first base. But kind of interesting to look back at some of these numbers. And then even in the pitching side, you go down a little bit. Like Landon Beidelshees, his numbers ended up being worse in the second half. Gabe Gackle improved tremendously on that 5.77 ERA. I think his start against Georgia in game 2 was the final start that he had last year. So he's got one more poo-poo start left in him, looking at these numbers right here. And then he ends up going to the bullpen doing a lot better. Aiden Jimenez had a 1.42 ERA. He, of course, got a lot worse in that regard. Gage Wood was not even pitching at all for Arkansas at this stage of the season. And from a pitching staff standpoint, really nothing crazy happens other than Cole Gibler, who had thrown 13 innings. He wound up having a much bigger role for Arkansas down the stretch. But there's really nothing that crazy other than Gackle's big switcheroonie and Gage Wood coming back into the fold in terms of, guys kind of overperforming or underperforming. But again, you look at this Razorback offense, and of course, they all wound up being, pretty good for the most part. I mean, it was that was kind of the story of last year is Arkansas got about as much as they could have possibly gotten out of their lineup from a production standpoint. But almost every single guy, if you look at where they were at this stage of the season, got a little bit worse for the most part. And now you pull up this year's stats. And now we're going to play the game of, will that guy improve on his numbers or will he, decrease his production? And by golly, man, I really hope there's a lot of increasing going on. We'll start at the top of the Rutan bar there, which, by the way, you see the team numbers, 271 in the batting average department, 465 slugging compared to 601 at this stage last year. They were at like 448, I think is what I said, in the on-base percentage department, 371 this year. Now, they have stolen more bases, so that's cool. But, a huge drop-off there. ERA slightly higher. Strikeouts about the same. Walks much higher with this year's group in the pitching staff department. But Carter Rutenbar hitting 355 right now. He just now recently qualified to be in the top group where he's like had enough ABs to qualify. And so now he is Arkansas's leading hitter in terms of batting average. He is one that I think is probably due to come down to earth a little bit. Like, he's probably not going to continue to hit 355 throughout the year. But if he wants to prove me wrong, be my guest. Damian Ruiz, of course, hitting 330. We're not going to see him for a while, so really not even worth talking about him for the time being. Camden Kojal and Ryder Helfrich right there, hitting 307, 304. Now, what was Ryder hitting? Ryder, at this stage last year, was hitting 318. I think he finished at 317. Kojal was hitting 411 at this stage last year. So not only are both of those guys down from what they were at this point a year ago, they're also down from where they finished at, because Ryder finished right at that 317 range, and Kojal finished hitting 333. He hit 333 overall and 333 in SEC play. In SEC play so far this year, Camden Kojal is hitting 167. So again, if we are of the belief that baseball is a game of averages, which I very much am, I feel like that means Camden Kojal is going to be due for a little bit of a bender here, just based on what he's done in his career versus what he's done now. And so, doesn't guarantee that you're going to get a ton of production out of Camden Kojal, but a lot would necessarily point to that. Micah New, from a batting average standpoint, hitting 286. I think that's about right. Like, I don't think he's going to have this like vast, I don't think he's going to be a 340 guy or anything like that. In fact, I think he's probably more likely to go down in the batting average department, but can he improve on that home run total at 5 right now? He hit 15 last year at Marshall, hit 7 in the summer in the Cape Cod League. Feel like that could definitely go up a little bit. Would also like to see him draw a few more walks, see 10 walks, 5 home runs. The batting average can come down a little bit if both of those numbers improve, and I think they probably will. Same could probably be said for Zach Stewart, who's got 6 home runs right now. Would like to see a few more out of him before this year's over with. I think that batting average is about right, honestly. So I don't expect there to be a massive change necessarily. Souza hitting 263. I think that's probably going to go up. Kahio Aloy hitting 252 and Reese Robinette hitting 239. Reese Robinette finished around 261 last year in the batting average department. At Kahio hit well over 300 last year. So both of those guys, they pretty much have to go up, but there's also reason to believe, based on what they've done previously in their career, at least Reese Robinette's drawing some walks. He's 's got 17. So his his on-base percentage is at 353, even though his batting average is only 239. You just got to have a little bit more power. He's only slugging 354. Would like to see that improve a little bit. Kahio Aloy only slugging 430 is like actually kind of hard to believe a little bit. And of course, he's now drawn 7 walks on the year after drawing a couple last night. TJ Pompey, another one, hitting 237 right now. There is reason to believe that he would improve on that. In fact, in SEC play, he is hitting 259, which isn't great, but he's even hitting better against non-conference foes. And so definitely some improvement to be had there. And, the pitching staff, I don't know exactly if anybody's going to drastically improve on their numbers, but I do think a lot of these guys, like you see Joey Lorenzini, who has a 45 ERA. I don't imagine he's going to pitch a ton here down the stretch. Mark Brissy's had a rough go of it here lately. I do think there's a chance for him to help them down the stretch, but I think his role is probably going to be a little bit lesser. James DeCramer with a 6.10 ERA, probably, trending toward a lesser role. Peyton Lee, Jackson Kersher, both of those guys most likely trending towards a little bit lesser role. So in terms of Arkansas improving their stats statistically on the pitching side, I think it's probably just going to come down to less guys throwing, honestly. Like, a lot of the ones that have actually thrown well for you, probably going to throw a little bit more. And real quick, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because I got to get to the chat, see what you guys have to say. But in 2022, these are what Arkansas's numbers look like. Now, this is not 34 games in. This is a little bit later in the season. This is what Arkansas's numbers looked like entering the NCAA tournament in 2022, because I think the story of that season, for those that don't remember, we never really saw this Arkansas team play at a championship level until the postseason started, especially on the offensive side. Really just did not see them. They were pretty good from a pitching staff standpoint up until the last couple of weeks of the season. But we never really saw that team put it all together until we got to the postseason. And then they went on a little bit of a tear. From a batting average standpoint, almost exactly what we're looking like. This year's team's hitting 271 right now. This year's, or 2022, they were hitting 269 going into the NCAA tournament. Arkansas is slugging 465 right now in real life. They were slugging 475 entering the NCAA tournament that year. On base percentage, I think Arkansas is at 371 right now. They were at 376 entering the NCAA tournament. And again, this was another team that, returned a lot of starters. I mean, Caden Wallace, Jalen Battles, Braden Webb, Brady Slavens, Zach Gregory, and Robert Moore were all returning starters on this team that basically, other than Caden Wallace, him and Jalen Battles had actually improved on their numbers, were just underachieving. And you were just kind of like, man, how did we bring back these guys and they're hitting worse? You couldn't really blame it on the transfers because Chris Lanzilli was swinging it pretty well. Michael Turner was swinging it pretty well. Peyton Stovall, at this point, you see he's hitting 252 right there. He wound up going on a real tear. I think he finished the year hitting like 290 overall. Brady Slavens actually swung the bat really well for Arkansas in the NCAA tournament, had the big base hit that sent them to the College World Series, hit a couple home runs in the regional, hit a couple home runs in Omaha. Braden Webb was really good for Arkansas in Omaha. So a lot of the best pieces on this 2022 Razorback squad did not necessarily perform that way throughout the season, and it kind of left you scratching your head. Specifically Brady Slavens. He went through a crazy slump where I think he was benched and out of the lineup. So maybe there's a little bit of a comparison there with Brady Slavens, Kahio Aloy, in a lot of very good and bad ways, honestly. You also look at the pitching staff a little bit. At this stage of the season, going into the NCAA tournament, Cole Ramage had thrown 44 innings out of the bullpen for Arkansas. And he actually gave Arkansas some pretty good innings in that regional final in Stillwater, but wasn't as big of a role on the pitching staff as it seemed going into the NCAA tournament. Same could be said for Brady Tigert, whose numbers are good right here. You see 2.62 ERA, had thrown 34 innings. He was basically unusable for Arkansas in the postseason. So a lot of the guys, and Jackson Wiggins, by the way, throws 63 innings. Jackson Wiggins, who's about to make his big league debut and is crushing it at the professional level, really struggled as a sophomore in a starting role to the point where you get to the postseason. He pitched a little bit in that Stillwater regional. They didn't really use him in high leverage situations either. And so I think that's another. And Will McIntyre, by the way, let me pull it. Where was he at? Will McIntyre had thrown 29 innings, had a 3.07 ERA, hadn't had that big of a role on the team, and then wound up being as big as anybody in the College World Series and pitched in Game 2 in that that Chapel Hill Super Regional. Gave Arkansas 2 huge outings out of the bullpen in the Stillwater Regional as well. And so that's kind of another parallel between, this year's team and 2022 is 2022. It took them a long time, really up until the postseason, really in that Super Regional, before they really found a formula on the mound where it's like, hey, this guy's role is this guy's role is this. And matter of fact, even Hagen Smith had some huge relief outings for them in the NCAA tournament. He also wound up starting an elimination game and having a pretty good outing. And so sometimes it does take a little bit of time, but I thought that was interesting. Thought you guys might find that interesting. We will find out what you guys think, because now I'm getting into the chat. And as you guys know, super chats start first. We got my guy, Garrett McCollum, says, thanks for the coverage, brother. Speaking the pig turnaround into existence. Well, I don't know if I'm doing that because I have no control over that. But if I am at all capable of speaking it into existence, I'm going to do my very best to do that. But I appreciate you, man. Appreciate your angry DMs during the games, man. They really crack me up sometimes, so I appreciate it. Keep bringing those. I'm messing with you. But no, appreciate you guys all for tuning in, but especially Garrett for coming through with the super chat, of course. We will start, as we start every single one of these Calling All Casual streams, we will start with Ryan trying to convince me that Gabe Gackle should come out of the pen. He says, Ellis, if not Gackle, who is most likely to start in place of Fisher on Sunday? Definitely Cole Gibbler. I would be surprised if Cole Gibbler didn't make his first career start for Arkansas this weekend. And the big part about it is because, if you go back to the offseason and really even the first few weeks of the season, what was my number one pushback when presented with Cole Gibbler being the weekend starter? I said, well, who the hell is going to come out of the bullpen and be the closer for Arkansas? Because Cole Gibbler's done such a good job in that role That question has now been answered unequivocally by Ethan McIlvaine. And Dave, matter of fact, will push back and will be very aggressive with you if you say that he doesn't have a closer. He's got a closer, and his name is Ethan McIlvaine. And so I think his emergence, combined with the fact that Arkansas hasn't had much consistency in their starting rotation, they had thought about starting Cole Gibler opening weekend. I think now is kind of the appropriate time to make that decision. And here's the thing. It's probably – so, like, let's say that and I do expect – by the way, what I think they're going to do is go – and I said this yesterday – Dietz starts on Friday. They will announce that. I think they're going to go TBA Saturday. I think they're going to go TBA Sunday, just like they did last week. And, I'm not saying you have to be happy about that, but I think that's probably the direction they're going to go. And I think if they don't use Gackle or Gibler on Friday, one of those guys is going to start Saturday. And then if you get through that Saturday game without using the other one, I think the other one starts on Sunday. But, if Arkansas, let's say Arkansas wins 4-2 on Friday, and Dietz goes 6 1/3, and then Ethan McIlvaine throws the final 2. Maybe you have like Parker Coyle eat up a couple outs there. Maybe there's someone to bridge it. But they get through Friday with just Dietz and McIlvaine and maybe one other arm, not Gackle or Gibler. I think you then start Gabe Gackle. And then I think say you win on Friday night 4-2, if you're in a situation where Gackle has started for you and you're up late in the game, say 6th, 7th inning, and you have like a 1-run lead, I think Arkansas would probably go to Cole Gibler in that situation. And then I think they would just Johnny Holstaff on Sunday. But I think if they're going to try to win the game in front of them. And so if that requires them to use Gackle out of the bullpen, I think they will. If that requires them to use Gibler out of the bullpen, I think they will. But I think Gibler is without a doubt like the most likely to start. If it's not one of those two guys, perhaps they give Big Tuna one more chance. I would be pretty surprised if anything else happened, honestly. Like Tate McGuire, like I think he's done a pretty good job for Arkansas so far this year. I like Tate McGuire. Is he the guy that you're going to start on Saturday or Sunday? Probably not. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, Peyton Lee, Steve Eves, like James DeCramer, like who really is it? Because I think everyone is so dead set on benching Gackle, but it's like, for who? You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do there? It's going to be very interesting. And then Ryan also says, is there any chance we see anyone who hasn't played much yet this year make some kind of impact down the stretch? Someone not named Wiggins. Let me think about this. I mean, I'll be honest with you, probably not. I think Ty Briscoe deserves a little bit of a mention here in this part because we got to see that one awesome outing in a midweek game where he struck out the side, was throwing 96, 97. They tried to bring him into that Florida series for one batter, and I think it was a 4-pitch walk. Maybe not the right spot for him. He looked really good. If they can kind of build on that a little bit, maybe he's a guy, especially being left-handed, because you've got, if you're starting Gibler, you're starting Dietz, you've got Parker Coyle. Those are 3 really good lefties, but if you're in a situation where you've used 2 of those guys already and you're planning on starting Gibler, you might need another lefty out of the bullpen. So I think there's a role for maybe him, Luke Cornelison, right-handed pitcher. I think Joey Lorenzini is also another one that hasn't thrown in a while, and it had not gone well for him when he threw. I'd like to maybe see him get some opportunities. Jordan Martin has, I think he's only thrown twice this year, 2 or 3 times, has looked pretty good in his outing, so maybe he's one. But I think Brissy, I think really all those freshman pitchers. That's my cop-out answer is all of those freshman pitchers. And then this actually leads me right into your next question, which is, are we not going to see Brumbaugh anymore? I hope we do. I'm just going to be honest with you. I was actually texting with our boy Daniel Shee, everyone's favorite guy, Daniel Shee, the lover of the Razorbacks. And I was texting with him, and I was basically like, and he agreed that they shouldn't just abandon Brumbaugh entirely. My thing is with the way that Arkansas is swinging it as a team where you're not really getting a ton of consistency as a group, you're not getting a ton of power, you're not drawing a ton of walks. Like there's not really a definitive identity. You just have a lot of boom or bust guys throughout the lineup, especially at the bottom half. I don't know if you can afford to give up on TJ Pompey because he has the ability to hit the ball over the fence. And we haven't seen that from Brumbaugh in real life action in regular season games, but Brumbaugh does contain some power, especially to the opposite field side. I think Brumbaugh is too talented to just abandon entirely. And I would point to 2024, Arkansas basically punted on Ryder Helfrich and Nolan Souza. If y'all remember the 2024 lineup, they stunk. And Ryder Helfrich and Nolan Souza, now Souza actually had a decent amount of success there in the middle of the year. Ryder, I think, finished the year hitting 179. in the moment, it wasn't that crazy to not play him because he hadn't performed, similar to Brumbaugh. It's not crazy to bench Brumbaugh based on how it had gone, but I think if they could redo that 2024 season, they probably would have rode with those guys a little bit longer to see if they could give them any type of juice. Arkansas also abandoned Jace Borfin in 2022, that season that I just pulled up. Now, he was a little bit banged up, so maybe that factored a little bit. But I think anyone who's super talented like that, I think you got to keep giving them opportunities. I think Brumbaugh is going to end up being a good player. It just didn't happen early in this year for whatever reason, whether that was mental, whether that was just, he had something wrong with the swing. Maybe he was banged up. I don't know. I can't believe it went as poorly as it did, but I would love to see Brumbaugh in some capacity. I also wouldn't hate seeing Brumbaugh on the mound. And he's thrown some bullpens here lately. He threw again at Auburn the other day, 95, 96. He's touched 98 for Arkansas on the bump since arriving on campus. I think Brumbaugh, there's some type of role for him. Maybe it's a defensive replacement late in the game. Maybe it's just a random pinch hit at bat here. They tried to give him a little bunt opportunity against Mississippi State. It didn't work. I think there's a role for Brumbaugh, whether that's on the mound. But it also went poorly enough to where I don't think I can, complain too much. And then Garrett wants to know, what about a spot start for Jackson Kershaw Saturday with Gak in long relief? So it's not the worst idea I've ever heard. I just have zero interest in it personally. I don't know, man. I would love to see like what is it exactly that you guys see out of Jackson Kershaw that I haven't seen. And listen, I love Jackson Kershaw. I've been a huge fan of his. I feel like I was kind of banging the drum for Jackson Kershaw leading up to the season. I don't think his recent results necessarily warrant that type of opportunity. Now I get it. You're thinking of like a, opener type of thing, like maybe only 1 to 2 innings, I assume. Is that what you're getting at? Okay. Maybe use him like Ryan Stanek was used by the Rays a few years ago, like as just a 1 to 2 inning opener, I guess. But I think he's a high 90s fastball, wipeout slider, good breaking ball behind it. Like I think he's a high leverage reliever. He has that written all over him. I think he's going to spend a few years in the big leagues doing exactly that. I just think he needs to get out of his own head and go out there and attack. Too often they bring him into SEC games and he's just like not there, or he'll face one little bit of adversity and then just kind of gets shook a little bit. I think they need to get him going in a very small sample size before we can talk about making him the Saturday starter. I also think the same could be said for Gabe Gackle, where it's like I think he just needs to go out there and get all this mental, up and down out of there. And then he also says he wouldn't mind a DeCramer spot start. Yeah, I don't know. I see. Here's my thing. Why are any of these options better than just the projected first round pick who's supposed to be your ace? Like, why can't he just go out there and do it? He's also done it this year. He's done it in SEC games this year. He did it in SEC games last year. I know he's had more consistency out of the bullpen, but so does everyone. I think the path to getting a good Saturday starter is a lot easier through Gabe Gackle than it is through piecing it together with DeCramer or Kershaw, who I don't know if they're going to use in any capacity, honestly. Let's see. And then Garrett says Ty Briscoe is this year's version of Cole Gibler. Got to get that man some innings. I don't hate this take at all. And Cole Gibler wound up being like truly, with their number 1 or number 2 option out of the bullpen last year. I don't know if Briscoe's going to end up reaching that high, but I think that's definitely a guy that could help them down the stretch. David says Andrew's Rocco Pepe take was brutal. Well, if I had known he was going to break his back upon joining campus, I probably wouldn't have expected Rocco Pepe to start. I don't know. I stand by it because he was, he got banged up and then obviously never really got to, it's no dissimilar than like Jonas Adu or someone like that, where it's like, yeah, he was banged up when he got to campus. Jonas Adu got to, eventually got healthy and then produced. Pepe, it just never really happened for him because he never really was healthy at any point. But like when they were, he led the team in OPS. He was hitting third to start the year. It wasn't like I just like had this hunch feeling and I was like, oh yeah, Rocco Pepe. Like, he had produced a lot at the schools he was at before. He had produced for Arkansas in scrimmages and then, tweaked his hammy, tweaked his back, and Never heard from him again. But no, I don't. That wasn't like a brutal take. It was a brutal situation that played out. But I'm glad we have his vibes around here. And then Garrett says this team is really missing an Aiden Jimenez, Ben Bybee type right-handed starter. Got to mix in a righty. That's what makes the GAC starting slot replacement tougher. Hard to run out 3 straight lefties. So one, I mean, if we're talking about weekend starter, Gackel's the guy. But I would say Tate McGuire is exactly what Ben Bybee was last year, more or less. Now, Ben Bybee threw a little bit harder. He had maybe a little bit better stuff. I think McGuire has a little bit better command. But I think Tate McGuire is that guy. They just haven't had a ton of opportunities to really use him on the weekend. But I think Tate McGuire is like, again, and that's one thing I literally was, I made this exact point with my fiance yesterday. I was like, yeah, Tate McGuire has been the Ben Bybee of this year, both in terms of just his role, but also like, he's not going to blow you away, but he's also not just going to go out there and completely crap his pants. Like he's just going to go out there, fill up the zone, pitch to contact for the most part. And it's interesting. Let's see. David says, can Hobbs hire cops to just come teach his pitch to young guys? Yeah, that could be interesting. I wouldn't hate that. I think Cops, I don't know if he's still trying to hang on a little bit. I don't know if he's still trying to hang on or because I think he got released last year at some point. I don't know if he's still playing, but once his playing career is over with, bring in Kevin Cops to teach the gyro pitch, man. I like that. And then Garrett says, I know when we get Wiggy back, we have to slide him in the Saturday start role where, yes, his starts will begin around 25 pitches and progress higher as we go, but piggyback him with Gackel. I think that's very possible. Because they did that. I guess it was with Brady Tigert and Will McIntyre a few years ago, because McIntyre had been their Saturday starter, which kind of seems crazy looking back at it. But, the year before he had been good in the starting role. And then they kind of just used him to supplement with Tigert as he was working his way back up. Yeah, I think that's very possible. Arkansas has a lot of options for that, weirdly enough. Now, are the options going to go out there and do the job? But I mean, that's, talk about Tate McGuire. I think that's a role where he could kind of fit in there. I think DeCramer, who hasn't thrown great for Arkansas much at all, but he's another guy that like kind of has that type of skill set. And we'll see. I mean, because that's probably about 3 weeks, at least 3 weeks away, maybe even longer than that. So we'll see what it looks like at that point. Because it's all it's Gabe Gackel is very capable of just going out there and pitching well. In which case maybe we'll feel differently about this whole thing. And then who knows? I mean, everyone has made the assumption that Cole Gibbler in the starting rotation is just going to be sunshine and rainbows, and he's going to crush it there. And hopefully he does. I think it's played out pretty well for him, where I think he's entering the starting role at the exact right time of his career. It's like not too early, it's not too late. It's just kind of right there. He was able to gradually work his way into it. But I think if either one of those guys are not giving you consistency at that point, yeah, Wiggins' return is certainly going to shake up the starting rotation a little bit. We assume, that's what they did with Brady Tigert. That's what they did with Gage Wood, which with Gage, they were kind of always going to do that. But, we never know. Let's see. Butcher Boy says, Andrew, do you think we can steal at least one from Bama this weekend? And if so, which game do you think we have the best odds? I mean, they could definitely steal at least one game from Bama. I mean, I know Bama's been good here lately. Arkansas is more talented than Alabama. Arkansas shouldn't be in a situation where they're like, could we maybe steal a game? Like, Arkansas is very capable of winning every single game. Will they, with the way they've been playing? Probably not. But, I think I think the game with Dietz, game one, you're going to have Dietz on the bump. He's been your dude. Bama's pitchers have all been doing a good job. They're not exactly a bunch of swing and miss guys. Like there are a lot of pitch to contact for the most part in their starting rotation, which has been effective, which has been good, but it's pretty similar to what Auburn's Friday night starter Marciano had been doing. And so honestly, I think the Friday night game it shapes up pretty similarly to how the Friday night game, which was game 2 last week, shapes up. But yeah, I think Arkansas's got a very real chance. Listen, Bama is good. I'm not trying to knock them at all. They are very good, and they've been unequivocally better than Arkansas to this point. They are not the type of juggernaut that you go into the weekend being like, hope we can steal one. Like, I think if Arkansas loses 2 out of 3, you should still be upset. You should still be like, damn, we underperformed. I think that's the way you should feel. Now, Georgia next week, A little bit different thing because Georgia actually might be a wagon a little bit. We shall see. We shall see. Let's see. We got anything else other than there's really not much going on here. Let's see. And then David wants to know, how big would Wiggins coming on to help in relief help this year's team? Should he even try to come back quickly, given what we've seen from this team thus far? I don't think. Listen, I don't think there's a lot of things that are going to go into Carson Wiggins' decision, and I think obviously his health is the far and away the number one, and like his readiness, how his arm feels, how his body feels, how he's feeling. That is what he's going to make his decision based on. I don't think he's like sitting here being like, oh, this team's 5-7 in SEC play. If they were 6-6, I'd come back. Maybe we get over 500 in SEC, then I'll come back. I don't think that's what he's basing his decision off of. In fact, I feel like if anything, the way this year is played out would increase, the likelihood that he comes back. Because, listen, as much as we like to, knock all these guys and shit on everyone every chance we get, Carson Wiggins is a human being, and he's, BFFs with a lot of guys on the team. He grew up in the state of Arkansas. He's been coming to Arkansas games for the last decade. Watched his brother pitch at Arkansas, watched his brother pitch in Omaha, got to see his brother be a part of these things. He wants to be a part of that same thing. He wants to see Arkansas win. He wants to see Arkansas succeed. He wants to see his brothers succeed. He wants to see his brothers win. And so the idea that Wiggins would be watching Arkansas lose a game to Florida and be like, yeah, I'm not coming back. That is a complete made up thing. I think he would definitely help a lot. He might be the literal, and this is not an exaggeration. This is not sunshine pumping. This is a fact. Carson Wiggins has a very real argument to be the most talented pitcher in the entire country. Realistically. Now, and in on last year's team, which was pretty much the best roster we've seen at Arkansas, he was the closer until he got hurt, which I think just tells you a little bit about how talented he is and how much they view him. Dave said it publicly a few times now. They think if he came back next year, he would be a top 5 overall pick. Now, is that 100% fact? Who knows? Would it be that good? Would he maybe just instead be a first-round pick? Maybe. But they were saying the same kind of thing about Hunter Dietz. Nobody believed him, and now everyone's seen Hunter Dietz come back healthy, and they're like, oh, damn. Hunter Dietz is a first-round pick. All the scouts agree. So I think it would be a massive deal. Because think about it. We were talking about, Dietz is a good comparison here. I know he's a left-handed version, but we've been saying that for 3 years. Oh, what would it look like if you could get a healthy Dietz? We're seeing what it looks like. Pretty damn good. I think Wiggins is, I'm not saying he's going to be throwing 7 innings in SEC games or anything like that, but I think we're talking about that talented of a piece where when you're in a situation like Arkansas is in, where you've really only got about 5 or 6 arms that you trust fully, adding unequivocally another one of those that might be the most talented out of all of them, I think that would be a big deal, man. That'd be a big deal. And then Ryan says, love you, Ellis. Yep, appreciate you, man. Let's see what else we got going on. What do we got going on? David says, at any point do you start playing Ryder, Coach, and every freshman with promise? They're already playing freshmen. Carter Rutenbar is in the lineup, and he's probably not going anywhere. They played Christian Turner a good bit here lately. Brumbaugh has obviously had his ups and downs, but they played Brumbaugh a good bit. Landon Schaefer's even gotten a few starts here and there. They've been playing freshmen, but I guess you mean in a punting the season kind of way? No, I don't think they're going to just punt the season. That's what in 2016 they really did do that, where they just kind of were like, all right, we're not making the NCAA tournament, whatever. Arkansas is still projected to make the NCAA tournament, so I definitely don't think we're anywhere close. Now, if you get swept by Bama, swept by Georgia, you lose a game or two to Missouri or whatever. Now all of a sudden you're in that all right, we're not making the NCAA tournament as an at-large. Let's just punt. Arkansas is not even. Even if you think they're not going to make the tournament right now, they're still very much in that mix. They're nowhere near punting season at all. Butcher Boy says, which freshman has the highest ceiling long term, over the next couple of years? I'm thinking Rutenbar, obviously. But bold take is Turner. I think the answer is Carson Brumbaugh, if I'm being honest with you. Now, again, we're not talking about results right now. You're asking about ceiling long term. I think it's Brumbaugh because he checks every all the tools. I mean, out of all these guys, you can make an argument for Turner. Brumbaugh might be the fastest. He might be the biggest. He might be the strongest. He's the best defender. From a power standpoint, he's up there, probably, as good as any of those guys. From a throwing arm standpoint, up there, probably better than all those guys. Like, I think that the path to him being a really good prospect is really not that crazy to me. And not to mention he's got the two-way potential as well. So, I mean, if he's, and we've seen guys, I know it sounds crazy. That's a lot putting on someone. I'm not predicting it for you necessarily. We've seen guys. I mean, Spencer Schwellenbach is a guy that's now starting for the Braves right now. When he was at Nebraska, he was their starting shortstop and their closer. We've seen stuff like that play out before. Now, obviously, you'd probably prefer him to pick one or the other, but, like, there is very much a world where, like, we're looking up in 2 years and Carson Brumbaugh's hitting second in the lineup, starting at shortstop, and then also coming in to close games. That's a pretty freaking high ceiling. Rudenbar, I hope he doesn't, take exception to this. I don't think Rudenbar has this, like, through the roof ceiling. I think he has a very high floor because he's a grown ass man who's, like, got a toughness about him, got an edge to him. He's very mature for his age. He's not scared. That's what's helping him have a lot of success right now. And I know Joe Doyle thinks he's got a chance to be a real prospect as, like, a Drew Gilbert type of guy. I don't know if he's, like, super toolsy in that, like, super high ceiling kind of way. But I say all this to say, I think Turner is a good pick for that. He also might be the best right now. Like, he's pretty damn good. He was really good in the fall. Got some opposite field power. He's fast as hell. There's a lot to like there with Turner. I mean, listen, this is a damn good freshman class. There's a lot of guys in this freshman class who are going to be really good, who are going to get starts, who are going to end up being, like, everyday starters and going to get drafted, going to be big prospects. I think right now, sometimes whenever these guys aren't necessarily performing, it's easy to kind of look at it and be like, oh, bust, 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 bust. I know I'm not saying you guys were, but in 2024, there were a lot of people calling Ryder Helfrich a bust. There were a lot of people calling Nolan Souza a bust. Like, there's a lot of these things happen. In fact, out of their freshman years, everyone would have said Gackel's by far the best prospect out of all these guys. If they could get anybody to be as good as Gackel, now everybody hates Gackel. The reality is all these guys are really talented to have pretty high ceilings. Hickory Hog here says Dawson's last few outings have been promising, minus a couple pitches. Definitely feel like 3-4 batters is his limit, though. I would agree with this assessment. I think he's. I mean, if I'm being honest with you, so he had the really bad outing to start against Texas Tech there, and then he came back in a midweek game and got, like, a raw deal where Zach Stewart just whiffed on a fly ball hit right to him, which ended up costing him, like, 3 or 4 runs. Since that moment, he didn't pitch for, like, 3 weeks after that. Ever since then, he's actually looked pretty good. Matter of fact, let me see if I can pull up real quick. I'm going to pull up Cooper Dossett's game log real quick. Shouldn't take me too long. So he had that outing that I just referenced where he goes an inning, gives up 3 runs. He gives up 4 runs in the opener, or in his first outing, gives up 3 runs in 1 inning of work against Arkansas State. Then he has an outing against Stetson, 1 inning, no walks, no runs, no hits, 1 strikeout. Goes against Mississippi State, 1 inning, 1 walk, 1 strikeout, no runs, no hits. Northern Colorado, no runs, no hits, no walks, no strikeouts. Comes in against Florida, goes an inning and a third, walks a couple, strikes out 1, no runs, no hits. So that's 4 straight outings where he does not, or 5 straight outings where he does not allow a hit at all. And then only issue just a couple of walks here and there. And then Florida, they got him out of there, which, to your point, like 3 or 4 batters is his limit. He got 4 outs against Florida, and then that's where he hit the wall. I think there's definitely something to that. In that Florida outing, he threw 24 pitches. That's about where he hit the wall. Against Missouri State, he threw 36 pitches. And the final pitch he threw was a 2-run home run, kind of right in that 20 to 25 pitch range. That's about when you should shut it down with Cooper Dossett. And so he gives up 2 runs and 2 1/3 in that outing, then comes back against Little Rock, 1 inning, 1 hit, 1 run. So really, we're going on like 7 outings where Cooper Dossett's thrown the ball pretty well and been pretty consistent, dare I say. But like you said, just got to be pretty careful. Ryan Koschu was kind of like that in 2021, where, if you get him out there for 1 inning, lights out. And he can maybe even come out and get you 1 or 2 more. But if you tried to squeeze out 2 1/3 out of him, it just always went to shit. And, there were several outings you could point to where it's like, just get him out 1 batter earlier. Someone at the Swatters Club the other day asked Dave about Parker Coyle and his role on the team. And because I think he's another guy where I'm sure, he's going to have a good bullpen outing this weekend, and then there's going to be 4 people tweet at me, Parker Coyle, Saturday starter? What do you think? You can start? But Dave was saying the other day, he said 35 pitches is about where the stuff starts to dip off for Coyle. Now, the good thing about Coyle is you can throw him in one outing. He can throw 30 pitches. You can bring him back 2 days later. He can throw 25, and it's kind of the same thing. But in his outings, 35 pitches is about where it starts to teeter off a little bit. And I think if you go look at all his outings, that's, you can tell that they've kept that in mind with the way that they use him. And then, yes, Steven here says, regardless, we obviously have to do everything we can do to win this Friday game, no matter who we throw. And this is 100% right. And that is why they're going to do the TBA thing. I know it kind of seems stupid. I know it seems childish. I know it seems like, oh, like really, you'll throw anybody. I think if you have a situation, like let's say that Dietz, because obviously he went 7 innings the other day. If he does that, they're going to be in good shape. But like, let's say he has one of those outings where he goes like 4 innings, he gives up a couple runs, walk rate gets up there, his pitch count gets up to like 85, 86. If they end up having to piece together 5 bullpen innings in what's a 2-1, 3-2 type of game, that would be your scenario to where you maybe end up using Gackle and Gibbler. And then really just saying, screw it, we got a Friday night win. Now let's just Johnny Holstaff this thing together. I think that's something you should do for sure. Let's see. David wants to know, should we try pitching Cahillo as a reliever? No, I would not do that. Just because they've had opportunities to do that over the last 2 years and have said no at every stop of the way. And I think Cahillo's even been down to do it and been like, hey, let me, when he was playing in the Cape last year, he was like, yeah, I need me to throw. But no, I think his pro potential is as a hitter. His, ability to help this team right now is as a hitter. I think you should just ask the guy who's been good for you before to get back to being good. Like I know it sucks sometimes that you just have to like keep running out the same things and hoping the results change. But I don't know. I really don't think like there's like a solution here. And hey, let's change everyone's role. And if we change 14 guys' role, maybe then we'll be good. I think guys just need to step up and play better baseball, in my humble opinion. Let's see. And then Caleb says, I hope the rotation is in much better shape before Wiggins gets added to the mix. I don't want him to have unnecessary pressure to be great immediately. I would agree with that for sure. Although I will say, and now the timing's not going to be exactly the same. Do you guys remember what happened with Gage Wood when he worked his way back from injury? And I'm going to stall for a little bit so I can pull this up. When Gage Wood came back from injury, I know everyone remembers the no-hitter, and we remember it being like, Gage Wood was awesome, and he was. When he first came back from injury, there were some lumps to be taken. His first outing, he only gets 1 out, gives up 3 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 1 strikeout, gave up a double and a home run and a wild pitch, only threw 20 pitches, did not go well. Now, he did throw well against Florida the next week, did throw well against Texas, but then he goes against LSU, goes 2 innings, gives up 4 runs on 4 hits, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, threw 60 pitches in that outing. Then against Tennessee, he was okay, goes 3 innings, 7 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, threw 76 pitches in that one. But like, he kind of needed to work his way into gear. And then he ended up not throwing in Hoover at all. And then in the NCAA tournament, it was awesome. Goes 6 innings against Creighton, only went 3 1/3 against Tennessee and did not strike anybody out, which is kind of interesting. And then, of course, had the big no-hitter. But that's something we need to be aware of. And by the way, Gage Wood had like 75 innings worth of experience under his belt, maybe even more than that. At the time he was coming back from injury, Carson Wiggins has about 14 innings of experience. And I know that it's going to be a little bit, different, but I think there's going to be probably some lumps, and you definitely need to be able to kind of build him up casually. So I would agree. I definitely hope the rotation's in much better shape, but that's also why, like, we got to stop viewing every guy it's like the backup quarterback thing where whoever is not starting on the weekend is always the no doubt obvious guy to just step into the rotation and give you 6 scoreless. Like everyone right now is looking at Ethan McElvain and they're like, wow, he's throwing 1 to 2 innings really well. let's just stretch him out to 6 innings and he'll be just as good, right? Cole Gibbler, he's throwing 2 or 3 innings. Let's just stretch him out to 6 and he'll be great, right? Big Tuna, he's throwing on midweeks and he's great. Let's just make him throw on the weekend. It'll be great, right? I think a lot of people assume that stuff is realistic, and it's not in any way, shape, or form, rather than just admitting, hey, it's really hard to start weekend games in the SEC. You're facing the lineup when they're like the most locked in, most dangerous. They've got all week to prepare for you. They've got all the metrics on you. Like they know your tendencies. You have to keep doing it time out. You have to face them 3 times. Like, it's just hard to do. And anytime we see someone struggle to do it, we're like, all right, let's just get someone else in there and they'll do great. A little bit easier said than done. And then Hickory Hog says, we need 2 to 3 more pitchers to really step up in the next few weeks, or we are cooked, as the kids say, for making it to Omaha. Yeah, I like that. Big Donnelly says, what seed do you project us if we make the tournament, 2 or 3? I actually saw a projection today that had Arkansas as the 2 seed in the Hattiesburg Regional, which would be in Southern Miss. They would be the number 13 overall seed, Southern Miss. Arkansas would be the 2 seed there. And then, or actually, they might have been the 3 seed. I can't remember. It was them in Kansas. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3. It doesn't matter. 2 like that. It really doesn't matter at all. Like that. It's all the same shit. If you're not hosting, you're not hosting. But so like, I don't know. It would depend on if they're like the last team in, then yeah, they'll be 3. But I would imagine if Arkansas gets to like, let's say they get to 15 SEC wins, 500 in SEC play, which I think is doable. I think they would probably be a 2. Right now, Arkansas's RPI is sitting at 55. LSU's RPI, by the way, did y'all see where it dropped to? LSU is now sitting at 75 in RPI. And then you've got Tennessee, who has the worst conference record out of everybody, but their RPI is at like 46. I think these are all going to kind of average out a little bit. Arkansas has only played like 4 true road games. They have not played many true road games at all. Actually, no, I guess it's like 7. I think Arkansas is 3 and 4 on the road in true road games. That's a big part of why Arkansas's RPI is where it is. You look at all the teams that are like Arkansas's 55. You look at 54 to like 40. All of them have played like almost twice as many road games. Like a lot of them have played 11, 12, 13 road games. If you just play more road games and hold serve in them, like for instance, Alabama is number 2 in RPI right now. If Arkansas goes and loses 2 out of 3 to Alabama, they will jump into the top 50 RPI. You can mark my words and you can come fact check it if you want after the fact. If Arkansas is 55 right now, if they go and lose 2 out of 3 this weekend, they will jump into the top 50 RPI. I guarantee that. And so I think right now, especially in the middle of March, people are like looking around. They're like, our RPI is at this. It's like, dude, like that kind of stuff. And it was the same with 2022, which, that 2022 team wound up not hosting, but it was like a whole thing where people were like, oh, they're going to miss the tournament. No, they're not going to miss the tournament. If you hold serve in the SEC, your RPI kind of balances itself out a little bit. So they'll figure it out a little bit. Let's see. Steven says, I'm hoping the Diamond Hogs take a page out of the B-Balls team's books from last year, trash most of the season, and make a postseason run. I got to be honest with you. If you think about Dave Van Horn's tenure at Arkansas, that is the case more often than not. It's at this point, that's maybe not true, but like 2009, Arkansas didn't host a regional or super regional. They go to Omaha. 2012 did not host a regional or a super regional. They go to Omaha. 2015, they do not host a regional or super regional. They go to Omaha. Then in 2018 and 19, you were national seeds. You went to Omaha. 2022, you did not host a regional or a super regional. You go to Omaha. And so then 2025, you were a national seed. You go to Omaha. And then I guess 2004, I think they were a national seed that year as well. So it's literally a 50, like of Arkansas's Omaha teams under Dave Van Horn. I hope I'm not missing a year there. In the years that Dave Van Horn goes to Omaha, it is a 50-50. Half of them are national seeds. Half of them don't host at all. So it's like definitely wouldn't be without precedent. There's also a lot of teams in like recent college baseball history, Ole Miss, Florida a couple times, Mississippi State in 2018, like these teams that just kind of catch fire at the right time. What I can't buy is that they're just going to be bad the entire year. Like you look at like 2024, that team obviously wound up sucking in the postseason and sucked at different stretches of the year. But like even that year's team, they had some moments where they were really good. They swept LSU, swept Ole Miss. They had a really good series win over Mississippi State late in the year. they had some moments where they really rose to the occasion. This year's team did that to an extent against Mississippi State, but like, I don't think we're going to get to the end of the year, postseason and all, and be like, yeah, this team just never played good baseball for multiple weeks at a time. You know what I mean? Like that would be pretty stunning to me. But I think at this point, it's looking like they're going to not put everything together anytime soon. So we'll just see what it looks like. Let's see. Big Donnelly wants to know, what happened to Jason Delamar? Do you see him popping back up in a future recruiting class as a JUCO transfer? I doubt it, only because you very rarely see guys leave the program at Arkansas and then come back. Now, I know he didn't technically ever really join the program entirely. I think it was a grades thing. I could be wrong on that. I feel like I remember it being a grades thing that was his issue. He was really good. He was going to be another huge piece in this position player class here. Really talented kid. I don't even remember where he ended up at. I would be surprised just because has there been anybody who's left Arkansas's program and then came back? I don't know, but who knows? Let's see. Ryan says, why has Arkansas had so many two-way guys the last few years, but none of them have played two-way at Arkansas? Well, one, there's not that many two-way guys. Like it's pretty rare. Like Jack Caglianone obviously did it a couple years ago, but it's pretty rare for two-way guys in college baseball. Like there's maybe only a handful that do it at a high level in the entire country. Like I don't know how many guys are doing it, at all this year, but I'd venture to guess there's probably only 10 in the entire country who are doing both well. I think it's pretty simple. Like it's harder to be at an elite level at both. And so it's the same reason why in the big leagues, there's not that many people that do it other than the freaks of all freaks. Cause it's really hard to be elite at both. If you have a kid who's enough of a freak, they might can do it. But I mean, like Paul Skeens at LSU, they looked at him and they were like, they took one look at him. He threw one bullpen at LSU and they were like, nah, you're not catching anymore. What the hell are we doing here? You're not going to be hitting for us. Most programs have that mentality of like, we're not going to ask you to do two things half-assedly. We'd rather you just lock in and do one thing, which is what Arkansas did. They did. I mean, Carson Brumbaugh did pitch in scrimmages this fall. And I think he even had a couple where he was like pretty good, but they just felt like, hey, if you're going to start at shortstop and you're going to be our everyday guy as a true freshman, it's probably going to be hard to ask you to come out of the bullpen as well and be like throwing bullpens regularly. So they decided to just let him lock in on shortstop. Then it didn't work out. Now all of a sudden he is doing two. They're going to see what they can do on the mound. And Carson Brumbaugh, again, is a like unique athlete. There's not many. There's far fewer Carson Brumbaughs than there are, Jackson Kershers, who are very obviously good at one and not as good at the other. And so I don't think it's like a, we're super anti two-way guys. In fact, they recruit a lot of them, but more often than not, you're better at one or the other. There are very few freaks like Caglianone who are just, able to be a stud at both. And even Caglianone kind of sucked on the mound at stretches during his time at Florida. Steven says, Andrew, do you think a lot of guys are in their own heads at the plate right now? 100%. I was actually watching Nolan Souza last night swing at a 3-1 fastball over his head, and he's talking to himself between pitches where he's like, dang it, man. You can sense a lot of that frustration. I think there's a lot of guys that are everyone, dude, every baseball player in the country at any level is in their own head to an extent, Mike Anu is in his own head being like, I'm going to hit a nuke right now. I'm about to hit a ball 470 feet. Like, that's what's going on in his head. But yeah, everybody is in their head to an extent. I do think Arkansas, if you want to, hold the coaching staff accountable, I think they could do a better job at managing some of that, and as much as I'm in the camp of like, hey, let these guys play through it, I think there's some mental, leadership development that could be going on here a little bit, but it's easier said than done for sure. Let's see. Ryan says, we did it with Jason Jones, just kept running him out. At least Cahillo has been successful in the past. Jones never was. That's not how it played out with Jason Jones. Now, Jason Jones wound up transferring to other places, and I think he's in Wichita right now. But no, they punted on Jason Jones every year that he was at Arkansas. And to your point, he didn't have a ton of success, so like they were right to do it. But they punted on him his freshman year, 2023, didn't really play him at all down the stretch. 2024, he wasn't even on the travel roster halfway through the season. they stopped playing him. Like once they got into SEC play, you didn't really see Jason Jones too much, and he didn't play much on that year's team, and then transferred out. So I don't know what this is a reference to, if I'm being honest with you. Let's see. Where are we at here? I see a lot of yeah, and then Ryan says, I thought Jones and Mason Neville were going to be monsters. Neville turned out to be decent. Neville, I mean, listen, I thought both those guys were going to be monsters as well. It's kind of crazy that that freshman class that year, I'll never forget that fall, because we chart all the numbers, we chart all the ABs and stuff, and we came out of that fall, and Neville had like a couple good moments here and there. Jones didn't do much of anything, and then all of a sudden we're like, Reese Robinette's the best freshman they got. We were like, what the hell? How did that happen? And then neither of those guys really did anything during the season. The biggest piece of revisionist history in Arkansas baseball over the last 5 years has been Mason Neville, where people think he like got a raw deal at Arkansas. And I don't think that's not what you're arguing. I'm saying the general public, where people thought that like Mason Neville got screwed over. I'm like, dude, he wasn't better than Tavian Josenberger. He wasn't better than Jace Borfin. He wasn't better than Jared Wagner. And he wasn't better than Kendall Diggs at the time. Now, obviously, he wound up being, but like Kendall Diggs hit 300 that year with 13 home runs. So it's like the idea that they were supposed to bench those guys for Mason Neville is nonsense. Honestly, Mason Neville just needed to go out there and get ABs, just needed to work through it. It's stunning how that is the case more often than not in baseball, especially with position players. Like, you just have to go get those reps. You just have to go play some summer ball and play 45, 50 games. Hell, Brenton Clark is a guy that, we'll see what he ends up doing next year. He would have started on this year's team, and he wasn't even on the travel roster last year, but you get those reps. You go out to Cali. You start figuring out how to hit different pitching, how to go the other way, how to do this. All of a sudden, he's a little bit different player. A lot of these guys need that, but with the way that Arkansas operates as a program at the level that they compete at, it's really hard to develop everybody, Let's see. All righty, guys. Let's see. One last question here from Steven. He says, would you guys rather have a great season and just miss Omaha, or have a bad season and win the Super? Without a doubt, you'll take bad season that ends in Omaha every single time. Hell, 2022 wasn't a bad season. I mean, they went 18-12 in SEC play. But, you definitely want to get hot at the right time, which is something that Dave Van Horn has done a lot over the years, has had his teams get hot at the right time. It's just unfortunate that some of his best teams, his most talented rosters top to bottom, have not been hot at the right time. Now last year's team, they were pretty hot in the postseason. They played pretty well, but just kind of ran into a team that beat them. And then 2018 just kind of hit that wall a little bit. So we shall see. I said one more, but no. Hickory Hog says, what movie are we going to see tonight, Ellis? So last week we went and saw Project Hail Mary, which if you haven't seen Project Hail Mary, if you're a movie goer at all, I think you should go see Project Hail Mary. A little bit lengthy, not the shortest movie of all time, but very good, very entertaining, space, Ryan Gosling. There's a cool little alien character. It's just, it's good stuff. Again, long, but if you're looking to take the wife out somewhere, I think you'll have a good time at Project Hail Mary. That's what we were seeing last week. This week, we also did see Mario. I see Steven talking about Mario. We went and saw Mario on Saturday. We took her nephew, and he had a great time. He was 4 years old, and he was, it was his first time ever going to the theater, and you never know how that's going to go with, kids. He was super into it. That one's like an hour and a half, so it's very easy to go take the kids to. That's a good time. Go see it in 3D. We were supposed to go see The Drama, which I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It's it's like a romance drama, I guess, with Robert Pattinson and Zendaya. We had bought tickets and everything, but then, she kind of decided at the end, maybe we'll just stay home tonight. So instead, we're going to be watching a Spider-Man movie at the house, which was my idea. And we're watching, there's a Spider-Man movie coming out this summer. So we're kind of redoing all the Spider-Man movies so we can get prepped up so that we're fired up. Good stuff. But appreciate you guys for tuning in and making this fun as always, man. Love talking baseball with anybody, and appreciate that even in the midst of this disaster of a season so far, you guys are here, want to help the team, want to pitch your suggestions. and we appreciate it, and I'm sure the coaching staff does as well. But in all seriousness, for real, appreciate you guys' passion for Arkansas baseball as always, and we shall see if this week marks the beginning of the turnaround. Got a massive opportunity, man. You go out there and win a series against the number 2 RPI team on the road. One, that would get you in a good spot in terms of just you're not missing the tournament. You're kind of back in the mix and in the middle of the pack of that SEC. From an RPI standpoint, that would really help you. And I just think it would kind of restore the good faith in the fan base for what should be a really fun, well-attended series against Georgia next week. Would love to go into that series with some momentum. But until then, we just play the waiting game and see if Arkansas can turn around. But appreciate you guys. We'll be back tomorrow. Going to get Cameron back on here. I'm at least planning. I haven't talked to him about it. Hoping to get Cameron back on here tomorrow so we can talk a little bit about previewing Arkansas and Alabama and getting back to doing our usual antics. So hope you guys have a good day. Woo damn pig as always. And hope you enjoyed another brilliant edition of the Baumbastic Podcast.